they'll have a representative on the, as part of the discussion and as part of the group. So we could mention, hey, we're in the process of putting together like the discussion for the group and who's going to be on it and how it's going to look, and they always have a representative.
Fixing it.
You know what I mean? So it'll be.
Good evening, everyone. I will now call this meeting of the Derry School Board to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will start with the roll call. If everyone could introduce themselves, name and position, starting from my right.
Joe Crawford, Assistant Superintendent.
Jane Samard, Business Administrator.
Michael Flynn, Superintendent.
Michael Thiel, School Board Chair.
Jen Thoreau, School Board Vice Chair.
Jenna Paradise, Secretary.
Jamie Crew, School Board.
Karen Rand, School Board.
Jason McLeod, School Board.
Anthony Henry, Pinkerton Academy Representative.
All right, thank you, everybody. Before we get going tonight, we had our first day of school for our K-8 students yesterday. I take a moment to welcome back all of our teachers, staff, students, and families. You guys, make our schools what they are. You've been missed all summer. So, if you're coming back to school this week, if you think your student might be eligible for free or reduced lunch, please sign up. Each school's first PTA meetings are going to be in the coming weeks. Please consider attending. And if you think you might want to volunteer at your kid's school, get fingerprinted now, do that vector training, even if it's for the end of year activities. It takes longer than you think. So I think we're in for a great year this year. We have Mr. Flynn kicking off his first year with new standards and expectations being set. We're coming back to school buildings that have had significant improvements, and we've got more to come. So thank you again to our facility staff, the contractors that worked so hard all summer to get our schools ready. Thank you to our teachers and staff for providing such a welcoming environment for our students coming back, and here's to a great year. Our first order of business tonight will be the consent agenda. For approval tonight, we have the non-public minutes of July 22nd, 2025, the non-public minutes of August 12th, 2025, the public minutes of August 12th, 2025, approval of the manifests in the amount of $2,152,809.28, of which $1,823,302.45 is general payroll, and $329,506.83 is general expense. Approval of the following nominations: Emily Queso, Reading Specialist, South Range Elementary School; Morgan Lacalade, Library Media Teacher, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School; Emily Ristine, one-year elementary teacher, Ernest B. Barca Elementary School. Approval of the following resignation: Lauren Connors, Early Childhood Special Education Teacher, DEEP. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
First by Jason.
Second.
Second by Jen. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We have one administrator nomination to consider. The secondary learning coordinator position at the central office recently became available, and we have an internal candidate, one of our teachers, nominated for the position. So turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Mike. I'm ecstatic to move forward for nomination Patricia Thomas. She has been in the district since 2010. As this news has made its way around, as everyone says, I can't believe we're going to lose her in the classroom. But from my chair, I can't believe what we're gaining in my team. She's going to make some significant movement with curriculum and has some really deep relationships with both West and Hood. So I'm ecstatic to move her forward for you guys tonight for nomination.
All right, I had the same thought you had, Mike. I'm thrilled to see Mrs. Thomas is going to be nominated for this position, but yeah, it's bittersweet because we'll be losing her from the classroom.
And just to clarify, so it'll be, Ms. Thomas will be a teacher until that role is filled. So the priority is the classroom and the students, and as we navigate applications and interviews, then she'll begin to transition over to the leadership position. So.
Yep, yeah, she'll definitely be leaving behind big shoes to fill at West Running Brook, but I'm happy she's staying in the district. So I will take a motion to accept the nomination of Patricia Thomas for the position of Secondary Learning Coordinator.
So moved.
First by Jenna, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0, and congratulations, Mrs. Thomas. All right, we have no visiting presentations tonight, so we'll move on to delegations and individuals. At this time, residents of Derry, parents of currently enrolled Derry students, and employees of the district may address the school board on matters that pertain only to school and district business for a period of time not to exceed 3 minutes per person. As a reminder, questions cannot be answered in real time. If you would like to speak, please come up to the microphone at this time and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Oops. Can you hear me? Rich Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. I know that I frequently let people know that I can't hear them when they don't turn their microphone on. I would suggest that maybe you just leave the microphones on so that people can hear what you're talking about, especially when you're talking to each other. But anyhow, I took the time to do a little research on RSA 91A. I sit on judiciary, and we typically get all the RSA 91A bills. So I'm fairly familiar with it. But there's a section in here. Let me see. It's 91A 8, 3, section C, and it states, each part of a meeting required to be open to the public shall be audible or otherwise discernible to the public at the location specified in the meeting notice. So it's not that I'm just complaining that I can't hear you, but it's a part of 91A that says whenever you speak, it has to be audible to the people sitting in the audience. So I would, like I said, I would appreciate if you make an effort to leave your microphones on and speak into the microphones so that the people at home and in the audience can hear what you're saying. Because believe it or not, we are interested in what you're discussing. Especially the night when you start your goals discussion. I'm sure that the people at home would like to be able to hear what you're saying. So that's all I've got tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. All right, I am not seeing anyone else come to the microphone, so we will move on with the meeting. However, the public comment period will remain open until 7:05 p.m. If you wish to speak prior to that time, please approach the microphone and I will recognize you at the next break in the agenda. The next item is student member updates. We did not have any updates scheduled for tonight, with Pinkerton students returning tomorrow and next students on the 2nd, but Anthony reached out to me this afternoon with some news that he wanted to share. So Anthony, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for fitting me in last minute. Can you hear me? Okay, all right. So, not very good news. I lost one of my classmates Sunday, but we got the news that it was one of my classmates today. His name was Eunice Crouch. I think that's how he's from Morocco. It's a hard to pronounce name, I must say, but I got to know him at the end of last year. I had a lunch with him. He sat at my table. I didn't get to know him quite as well as I wish I did now, but whenever I saw him at lunch, rarely was he eating. He was always helping other students with work. When I did talk to him, I was really impressed. For someone that had only lived in America for 8 months, spoke perfect English. Very smart. And although he's a Hooksett student, I felt compelled to speak today because Pinkerton's in Derry. If I may request a moment of silence for the family, that may be appreciated.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anthony.
Great job, Anthony.
All right, our next item is deliberation. So we have one item tonight, which will be to review, discuss, and vote on our school board goals for 2025-2026. We should have a presentation here. All right, there we go. So you can go to the next slide. To give a bit of background on the process, back on May 29th, the board met with Mr. Flynn and Dr. Crawford to discuss the board's thoughts and concerns and what it hopes to accomplish over the next year. Since that meeting, we've each had the opportunity to speak to Mike one-on-one and to provide him with our individual thoughts on what the board's goals should be. Mike consolidated those individual lists into an overall list of goals, which was presented to the board at the last meeting. So it sounds like there was quite a bit of overlap in what each of us thinks the board's goals should be. And that's good. That means we mostly agree on what our weaknesses are, what we need to work toward improving. And, looking at what these goals are, I think, we really want to get back to basics, to settle things down after several eventful years on the board. So before we get into the goals themselves, I kind of want to set the tone for what we should be looking for, when we're writing these goals. If you've ever, dealt with setting goals in a professional setting, you've probably heard this term, SMART goals. So it's an acronym telling us our goals should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. For example, if we want to improve communication from the board, our goal shouldn't just be to improve communication. It should drill down to a specific thing or things that we can do in the next year or so to accomplish that. So Mike, in the list he provided to us, the goals were already pretty well broken out into, our standing committees. I've reformatted each of those into 6 goal statements. So, I'm going to read through each of the 6 goals, and after I read each one, we can discuss. Everybody can give their thoughts on the goals, whether they think it's a goal we want to adopt, if it's realistic, if we want to make any language changes. So we'll get started with the first goal here, which addresses communications. So the school board, through the superintendent and the communications committee, shall develop a plan for communication of the board and district's goals, initiatives, budgets, and projects. This plan should encourage a unified message across the district and should utilize multiple ways to reach the community, including the district website, email, social media, and in-person events. So communication has been a major topic of conversation over the last few years. It was important as we navigated the restructuring plan and getting the facilities bond passed. And I think there's a desire to establish, regular lines of communication, ways for the board to engage with the community. So does anyone have any thoughts on this goal? Any, thoughts on the language, concerns?
While everyone's thinking quickly, this was the #1 common denominator amongst all of you. It was pretty clear that it's an area of growth for us, not only from my office, but from the buildings and from the classrooms. So once you guys decide if this is yay or nay, or we go through the goals, we'll then talk about next steps in me developing my goals, buildings developing their goals, so that everything's connected back to what we have going on here.
Yep, so, we'll read through each of the 6 goals and, we can have a discussion on each of them if we need to, and then at the end, we'll, take one vote to adopt. So, any thoughts on communications?
Okay. I just had a quick question about how this would be measurable. Are we going to put something in place and then put out surveys to people about how they feel? Like, how do we, if we're following the SMART guidelines, how will this be measurable? Because we do all this right now, email, social media, in-person events. So what will change that will make it measurable for us?
Well, I think, the major concern is about consistency, right? There's messaging from various parts of the district. You have schools and their principals are sending stuff out. The district is sending stuff out. Food service is sending stuff out. The board is sending stuff out. I think it's about, coordinating those messages and, particularly from the school board, coming up with some sort of plan for consistent messaging, because we've never really had that. We reach out to the public when we need to, when there's some sort of, other goal that we're trying to achieve, but, there has not been consistent, regular communication. And I think that's what this goal is looking to, to establish.
And more specifically, when you talk about the measurable parts, that will come through the committee work, right? So the committee does the work. The committees in their first meetings, we're going to talk about it, is going to set their goals, and it'll be more micro level rather than macro level. This is more about the overall, what are we going to do, whether it's specifically the communications committee, but what's coming out of facilities, what's coming out of policy. All that committee work ties to this group as a whole. We just want to make sure we're echoing what we measurable, and it could be surveys, but it could be when you're at the events, how many people are showing up, how many aren't. So those measurables will come through the committee, not from this board. Does that make sense? Okay.
One thing I wanted to add to kind of piggyback off what Mike said is the actual SMART goals are going to come out of the committees. So this is high level stuff. So I think what we need to discuss is, are we satisfied with the way it's written here, to then really drill down and dive deep when we get into the committees to actually set up, okay, so specific, boom, it's this, measurable. Jenna, how do we measure? Is it attainable? Yes. Is it realistic and then timely or time bound? This is going to be executed. It'll be complete on this date. Then we can kind of check in and touch back on all of them.
Yeah, I think, later on we were going to talk about next steps, which is, like Mike said, the committees, you're going to move on these, wider goals, you're going to move on to the committees, and then each committee is going to have their own set of goals. And, the administration and the administrative departments are going to have their own sets of goals. So these are just meant to be very broad.
Okay.
All right, so going once, going twice on communications. All right. Next up. All right, so our second goal, which addresses curriculum and assessment. The school board, through the superintendent and the curriculum committee, shall create a regular schedule for review of curriculum materials used in each subject area and grade level, and facilitate the creation of materials to educate the public on learning expectations and the measurement of student progress. So, curriculum from the board perspective, what we want to do is make sure the curriculum materials the district is using are effective, that they're meeting state and federal standards, and that we're budgeting for investments in curriculum where they're needed. So, for that, we should have, in tandem with the administration, some sort of plan.
And back to Jenna's initial question, because sometimes it's harder to connect a communication goal where it may not feel as measurable. If we're talking, like specifically, the curriculum assessment committee is going to develop a regular schedule. So a measure there is pretty simple. Is it developed or is it not? And that's more of the committee work. I just want to keep bringing it back that the work is done at the committee level and the updates are brought back to the board. And at the mid-year check-in, when we read these again, the committees are going to give their update on how far they're moving on those goals. Okay?
Any thoughts on the curriculum and assessment goal?
I was excited about this goal. This was one of my goals that I listed, along with communications as well. I think these were my top two, actually. Curriculum and assessment, I'll be chairing that committee with the director of curriculum, Kim Conant. I'm excited about this because I feel like within the district, over the past few years in particular, curriculum has kind of been on the back burner in a way because we've had such a focus on facilities from the board side, and obviously admin too, but sitting on my seat, that's why I felt like this was an important thing to look at closely. So I'm excited about this, and I think what my goal would be and my hope would be coming out of this particular committee is that parents are able to, and people in the community are able to access information about our curriculum on our website and learn more about it, have everything kind of be streamlined there. And that work will obviously be done in committee, so.
All right, any more questions, comments? All right, we'll move on to number 3. So number 3 addresses facilities. The school board, through the superintendent and the facilities committee, shall facilitate the development of a schedule for anticipated capital improvements and develop a plan to fund a capital reserve for those improvements. So we obviously made a huge step forward with the passage of the bond last year. That's going to allow us to address a backlog of major facilities projects. But all through that process, I know I've had a lot of people ask me what our plan for the future, if the bond passes, how do we ensure we don't end up in this situation again? The bond's going to allow us to make major improvements, but it's not going to take care of everything, and the buildings are going to continue to age. So, we really need a rolling 5 to 10 year plan, of projects that we know are going to need to be addressed in the future, and a plan for how we're going to fund those projects.
Something for language that we may want to consider would just be something that includes the bonds, given that it is a goal for this year, just kind of incorporating that as part of, obviously we'll have updates to provide at meetings around the bond, but I think including something that clearly defines or specifies bond in this goal would be helpful, just as part of ongoing in 25, 26 school year goal. So school board goal would be helpful for folks.
What do you mean by that, Jason? Like, what would be discussed about bonds since it's already set in place? Are you talking about like refinancing or
No, just update, right? Just something to say, hey, one of our goals is to, and not that we haven't done it so far, I think they've done a great job of explaining, but just when we put pen to paper and say we're going to update, then it's just another check-in to say, hey, community, you've entrusted us with these dollars. This is important to us still. It's a part of the goal. It's written in the goal. So as part of the goal and as part of us reciprocating trust, going back to communication, we're gonna make sure we discuss it.
Do we kind of feel like that is addressed by the communication goal, though? Because we do say in that goal that we're going to develop a plan for communication of the board and districts' goals, initiatives, budgets, and projects. So, I think you're going to see some, especially with communications, right? You're going to see some interconnection.
Of course.
I understand Jason's avenue of, hey, you guys just voted yes on this. You've entrusted us with your funds, putting it front and center. I think they're going to combine and connect, because we've already talked about whether it's a progress chart and all of that. I think there could be a spot on here that under the facilities, the continued focus on the projects of the bond, something low level, just so that, someone that's just reading it gets it, that it didn't disappear.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a separate paragraph. It literally, if it just says bond in there somewhere, I'm good. Because to your point, Mike, if you think about people who are just starting to pay attention now, or haven't even started paying attention, but might be paying attention in 3 months or 6 months, or when something becomes relevant to them, this might be an easy way to tie back and just say, oh, okay, here's where part of it is. Let me see if I can do a little more research on that, or reach out to the administration, or reach out to the board. We all have been discussing this for, some of us for a couple of years at this point, even longer, right? But we have to keep in mind as part of the communication that folks aren't on the bus yet. And ideally, we're going to get everybody involved in paying attention and being part of the discussion. But there are many in the community who aren't yet part of that discussion. So as people come on, we have to understand that they're going to be starting from scratch as it relates to the information that's available.
All right, so how do we like this? The school board, through the superintendent and the facilities committee, shall continue the focus on communication of the progress of bond-funded projects, facilitate the development of a schedule for anticipated capital improvements, and develop a plan to fund a capital reserve for those improvements.
Sounds great. Thank you. Love
Works quick.
That's it.
He works quick.
You ask, you shall receive.
All right. Any other thoughts on facilities?
I would just echo what Jason made, a lot of good points. I think that people are very interested in hearing about the bond. There's a lot of, this is a Venn diagram kind of, there's a lot of overlap with communications. But I can empathize with the fact that the facilities issues are going to be really looked at closely. And I also think it's really important to make the information that we share in this meeting and in this room very accessible. We know that people tune in at various points, and whatever propels them to get involved. I don't want them to listen to a meeting and say, well, that was difficult to follow. I want to know that they can engage right from the beginning. So.
Yeah, and I think some of the communication efforts, I know, Mike, you've talked about, some sort of newsletter. So, obviously, I think that newsletter, would address updates on the bond-related projects. But, also the Facilities Committee is going to be continuing to, deal with those bond projects over the next, at least a year, probably two. So, it makes sense for that to be part of that committee's goal as well.
I said couple years. Sorry.
All right. Next up, goal number 4 focuses on finance. So the school board, through the superintendent and the finance committee, shall develop a transparent, easy-to-understand process for creating the district's budget. So this is going to be Mike's first budget season with the district. I'm sure he has some idea of how he wants to approach it, practices he'd like to implement here. We've all expressed things that we'd like to do differently, and, with Mike coming on, there's no better time than now. So you've probably seen later in the meeting, Mike's going to be addressing the timeline he has in mind for the upcoming budget season, and that'll be the start of the conversation. So any thoughts on this goal? All right, hearing none, move on to the next. All right, goal number 5 addresses policy. The school board, through the superintendent and the policy review committee, shall review and update the district's policy manual to match current laws and practices and explore options for creating an online policy database. So this is something we're all aware of. Our policy book is in much need of a wide-ranging update. Once the policy committee starts meeting, I believe it's going to roll right into bringing several policies for first and second readings to every meeting. This is going to be a long process, to get us caught up and then back into a normal cadence of updates. So, we also, I think a couple of people mentioned the idea of, improving the online database that we have for policies. So, there's several options out there. I know, Mike, you have one that you used in Hopkinton, and, there are others we can look at. So, that's something that, is also out there for the committee to look at as well.
Is this, so the goals that we're making, this is just for 25, 26, but my question is, policy review, does that typically happen at certain increments? Is it once a decade, is it once every 5 years? Is it supposed to be done every year?
I mean, policy review is an ongoing process. It definitely revolves annually around passage of, new laws at the State House that, affect the policies that we have on the books, new policies. The School Board Association puts out, I think it was saying I think maybe it's twice yearly policy updates, to their database of suggested policies.
Once we get to a level set, good practice, you're probably cycling through about every 3 to 4 years. And whether it's reaffirming it, whether it's rescinding it, whether it's completely adopting something new. The challenge for us is we got to get back to a base level. I'm experiencing some policies that haven't been reviewed in over 10 years. So once we get to that, I would say the normal turnover will be 3 to 4 unless something comes out from NSBA, something new comes in. It's typical practice.
Sure.
So, policy is an ongoing thing, for the board. It's a never-ending thing, but we, right now we're not in a normal cadence.
Correct.
With updating our policies. We're at a point where we're way behind, and the goal is to get caught up.
And thanks to Karen already reaching out, looking to review all of them. So we're gonna get rolling. We're gonna try and bring the goal. Well, we'll set it at the committee level, but my goal would bring about 5 would be a goal to bring here for first read, and then second read, try and get into that cycle about 5 a meeting. Big goals, we'll see.
All right. Questions, comments on policy? All right, move on to goal number 6, which addresses the Derry Village School. The board shall create an advisory committee made up of board members, district staff, and community members, and task it with exploring all options for the Derry Village School property, building, and its contents, and making a recommendation to the school board. So this is one of the biggest unanswered questions we have in front of us for this year. You know, DVS has been closed for a year now, and we need a consensus plan for the future of the building and the property. So this is a decision that rests with the board, but there's an information gathering and opinion gathering process that needs to take place. So we make sure that the path chosen is in the best interest of the district and for the community. So thoughts on this goal?
Quickly, this was the second most common theme amongst all of you. So again, you're a lot closer than you thought you were, which is pretty awesome.
And I mean, this is a goal that will, you know, kind of develop as we move out of this meeting. You know, we'll need to sit down, Jen and I with Mike, and talk about what this committee is going to look like, how we're going to form it, you know, who we're going to want to serve on it. So, you know, and I think, you know, the hope is by the end of this board year that, you know, we will have a committee that has, you know, done the work and, you know, ready to make some sort of recommendation.
So I know we're early on, Michael. Do we have an understanding or an expectation as to when or where we see things happening? Obviously, everything else is going to be done through a committee, so those committees will start to meet. Understanding you guys will be meeting with Mike, but do we have sort of a timeline? I know you're saying end of the year, but the process to me, the end of the year process should be the meeting and the discussions versus how long is the runway to just get the committee up and running, you know what I mean?
Oh, no, I mean, I think we want to get the committee up and running very quickly, and we want to have the committee's work and decision, you know, hopefully done by the end of this board year.
I would think that there's going to be budgetary impacts in regards to any discussion around DVS. So committees should be up and running quickly. And then I would think that the information that's coming out of that work is going to either impact the budget, impact deliberative, impact what we have going forward. So I could see it being a year-end decision on whether we transition, whatever those are. But I think that information is going to be key as we're doing budget drivers, and whether it's, you know, I don't want to get into the details, but as you can think, it can be whether it's a cost or whether we're going to receive revenue. So it's going to be a quick moving one.
Yeah, my concern is that as long as we have something addressed, or at least what we believe to be a path forward during this board, because once it goes to, you know, the next board, then the process kind of starts again, and we kind of fall into this path of perpetuity, you know, where we're constantly kicking it, the next board, and
Absolutely.
before we know it, it's 5 years down the road and the building's still sitting there.
That is not
We're still
me.
wondering
We're really
what's
good
going to
at
happen,
that.
right? What's that?
We're really good at that.
That's not my timeline, and I agree.
Thank you.
The people making the vote should be the ones that are most comfortable and the ones that have been a part of the work. So.
Yeah, I think the hope is that this committee, you know, with getting it up and running, you know, we hope will happen quickly here, and then, you know, it can start its work, and, you know, the hope is that it would make a recommendation to this board.
I have a question. Would this have to be something that would have to be voted on by the public? Would this have to go onto a ballot of what to do with Dairy Village, or is that?
It all depends on what comes out of it.
Okay. I didn't know, like, at what level would it come down to?
If the property were to be sold,
property. It's property sale essentially, but most or majority of the other decisions, you guys are the voted elected officials. You carry that weight. Remember those heavy decisions that you have to make. So I can understand why Jason's saying if we can keep a consistency amongst the members that are here, that'd be great.
Okay, thanks.
I'd say the majority that would go out would probably just be the sale.
All right. Any further thoughts on this goal? All right. Well, those are our 6 goals. So, you know, next steps, we already kind of addressed this, you know, in this conversation. So next step will obviously be, you know, tonight to take a vote to adopt these agreed upon goals. You know, and from there, as we talked about earlier, you know, Mike and the committee's task will each goal, you know, with each goal will work towards achieving the goals. And that's going to come as each individual committee forms their own goals. And, you know, each committee and then, you know, the board itself, you know, we are going to set up regular assessments of these goals throughout the year. So Mike, you know, Jen and I will kind of figure out what that cadence is going to be for the, you know, review of the goals over the course of the year.
And just for the public knowledge, once the co-chairs meet and set the committee dates, those will then become, we're going to create a committee section on the webpage. You'll be able to see when those meetings are posted. Those will be available for anyone to join if necessary. I know Jason has lofty goals. They want to meet twice a month, which is great through November. I believe curriculum assessment is targeting some of that as well. Policy is going to be probably once a month, so to speak. And I know communications, finance and stuff haven't set dates yet. So once those come, we'll make sure that they're posted.
All right. Any further discussion?
I move that we adopt the agreed upon goals for the 25-26 school year.
All right, we have a first by Jason,
Second.
second by Jen. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, the next item will be the business administrator's update.
Uh-oh. I definitely messed something up, guys. Oh. All right, we're back.
Are we back?
I didn't know you hired me to run this, so that was different.
Okay. The light's flashing, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about food service and finance tonight. Talk for a minute about free and reduced and so far what we've received for applications. To date, as of the end of the day, Director Christina Lebelzik met with me this afternoon. So far, we have 14 families who were approved for free meals based on their income, 121 who are approved for free food based on, they're actually direct certified, so they come directly from the state. We had 18 who were approved for reduced meal prices. And we had 4 families who went onto the application and then checked the box that said does not qualify. So they didn't put their income, didn't do anything, but they went on there and put their name and checked the box that they weren't going to apply. So we have 4 of those. Every year, the families who are on free and reduced in the prior fiscal year have until October 8th. Well, they have 30 days after the start. This year, it would be no later than October 8th for them to reapply. So we have about 527 of those students whose status is going to change back to paid if they don't reapply. So we will be sending notification out to those families, and when talking to Christina, the majority of those families do reapply. We don't lose that many of them unless they generally don't qualify, but we're looking to get all of those students to stay on their free and reduced if they qualify. As a note, applications are really not retroactive, so if you're not part of the group that was approved last year, but you're applying this year for the first time, and you put in an application last Friday, any of the meals that you're purchasing are paid meals until you get notification that you have been approved for free or reduced. Also want to point out that balances from the prior year, whether they're positive or negative, will be on your student account this year. So if you went to Grinnell last year and you're moving on and now you're going to be in 5th grade at West Runningbrook, your balance will carry forward with you. As a note, if you have a family member that attends Pinkerton, they do have to fill out their own application, even if there's a student in the Derry School District. They are completely separate applications, but we do want to encourage students who move on from us and continue on to Pinkerton to still fill out the free and reduced applications. It's really, really important. The free and reduced data actually made up 26% of all the adequacy funding in fiscal year 2026. It not only affects the free and reduced numbers, but it also affects data collection, brings in revenue for the district. So it's really important that families fill out those applications. And Christina and her staff will continue to find very creative ways to get families to fill out the applications. Also, as just as important at the Pinkerton level. And next charter school, for those students, they actually apply through us on our portal, and they access the meal program in our cafeteria at Gilbert H. Hood. Last week, a few of the schools, during the meet and greet on Friday, set up a child nutrition table with applications and information about the program and information about My School Bucks. And so they said that that was very successful, and a lot of parents stopped by to get information on our free and reduced program or how to pay. People can bring in cash, a check, or they can use the My School Bucks app and make their payment for food on there. She also wanted to remind you that the snack bars at all the schools are open. They only sell smart snacks that are approved through the USDA, and if a parent wants their child to access the snack bar, they would have to have a positive balance on their account, or they can bring in cash. Sometimes parents have wanted to put a limit on how much money a student can spend on snacks. If you contact Christina Lebelzik, she is happy to set up those restrictions on your child's account. Also, we're going to continue with the fresh fruits and vegetables program. We are awaiting what our allocation will be for each of the schools, but the 3 schools who will offer that program again are Grinnell, South Range, and Barca. As you remember, we prepare fresh fruits and vegetables, a lot of different ones so that children can try things that they may have never had before, but it's a whole school program, and all of the students are encouraged to participate in that. Lastly, for food service, the director and 8 of our other staff members who are head cooks or managers went to the School Nutrition Association meeting in Concord, and they participated in team building. They learned about AI in the world of food service related to marketing and social media, and they also had a keynote speaker on nutrition. Additionally, they had vendors there with food supplies for the program, different drinks, different food samples, and vendors on equipment. So it was a very successful conference, and her staff really appreciated the opportunity to go and have some professional development. Talking about food service and finance, I mentioned at the last board meeting that we would be starting our 23-24 single audit this week. The auditor arrived yesterday and also worked today. That single audit was on food service and ESSER funds. And so far it's been a very successful audit, and they will finish up next week. September 2nd, we start with our auditors on site for our 24-25 full audit, and we've already been preparing all of the information. They send us a list of all of the for example, bank statements, payroll registers, general ledger reports, trial balance, anything related to capital projects, all of the reporting that we put in for Department of Revenue, and detailed listings of all our funds. It's very comprehensive audit that we go through. So we are prepared. That's what we've been working on, and we'll be preparing that for Tuesday. They'll be arriving. Just want to mention, you talked about the bonds. If you remember, prior to July 14th, we had made payments on bond work that was a little over $1.1 million. Today, we issued checks in the amount of $1,286,056.82. And that consisted of tech roofing, $576,000, contracting, so tech roofing was for Grinnell and Hood, contracting specialists, $668,340, and that was for the banding project at West Runningbrook. Gale Associates, $31,590, and that's related to South Range School, and Jobin Construction, $9,455. And since those, this is only the second time we've made a payment on bond work. So for the next board meeting, you'll get a full financial and a spreadsheet with all of the payments that have been made, the amount of the contract, any of the adjustments that had to be made or change orders that were financial, and what the ending balances are. So you'll have all of that for the next meeting. We are working on our DOE 25, which, as you know, is a comprehensive report that is for the Department of Education, and it's basically a breakdown of all of our revenues and expenditures from the prior year. And we'll be working on that. Lastly, I will be attending training tomorrow through Zoom at 1 p.m. for the adequacy formula the new adequacy formula with the DOE. So they've actually put out a new tool, and they're doing training on that tomorrow so that we can work to analyze all of the new information that they have. And lastly, just as a fun note, we have one person that does payroll, and she has set up more than 550 positions for the first pay this week. And thanks to Mary Webster for that. That was a lot of work. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Jane. Thank you for highlighting the free and reduced lunch program. I know, it's so important that families are getting the support that they need, and, as you mentioned, it has a major impact on state funding. So do we still send paper applications home with every student?
So we have, I know my light's on. I'm just telling you, okay? So it wasn't me. So we have multiple avenues that we're trying to approach this year. We have paper, we have the button on all the home pages. We are near completion. I've been working with a new company to develop a how-to video, essentially, along with the why behind it. So we'll be putting that in everyone's inbox. The interesting part I want to bring up with Jane again is even if you have a Pinkerton kid and a Derry kid, you have to fill them out for both, right? And we're finding that to be a gap because I don't know if it's an assumption because I've only been here for 60 days, but you may assume that since you're filling it out with your 6th or 7th grader, that it automatically qualifies for your student. The students at Pinkerton are not ours. They're not enrolled in our SIS system. We are completely different entities, so that's why you need to fill out an application for both. But I'm going to be working with Mr. Powers to try and access our students to put what we're doing for our enrolled students in Derry into their inboxes so that they can have the same process. I know Jamie had a question over there. Sorry.
Sorry. So for the free and reduced lunch, say a family had a circumstance in the middle of the year, like parent lost a job or something, and they applied like mid-year and they qualify, do we still get funding even though it's past the October deadline?
Yes, free and reduced is calculated basically it's similar to the ADM. Those numbers are used in the calculation year round. And thank you for mentioning that. We do want to encourage parents, if they have a change in family situation, people are moving into your home, spouse or somebody loses a job, you can apply for free and reduced at any time during the year. Yes, we encourage that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's, you can do it all online now. You don't have to worry about, going to the school office or filling out a paper form. And you mentioned the fresh fruits and vegetables program. My son had that all through his years at Grinnell. And, that's a great program. Gives the kids an opportunity to try things they might not usually try. Although I, would warn parents with kids that have the fresh fruits and vegetables program, check their backpacks.
No.
If they get something they don't like, you might find it in there a little too late.
And that's also a program that's driven by free and reduced numbers.
Yep, and you mentioned the West Runningbrook project. I was over there for the meet and greet the other day, and it looks great. I mean, it looks like there's still a little bit of scaffolding left up there, but it's mostly
Scaffolding
done.
will be gone by this Saturday. That's the new one. So. All right.
Thank you, Jane. So Mike is up next with a review of the timeline for the upcoming budget season.
So budget timeline, it's just a brief discussion. This is nothing more than an informative piece for the board, as I have you all together only every other Tuesday. I've been working with Jane hand in hand to try and develop possibility of new information that we're going to deliver, different ways of delivering information. I actually met with Anthony, believe it or not, a couple weeks ago, and I was showing him examples of maybe some opportunities that we're going to work. We've been trying to figure out the finance system and what it can produce versus what it can't. Where I'm really going with this is, I think you said it really well, Michael, is it's maybe a time to reflect on what we've done or what we need to change or how we want to do it. More importantly, you're going to see at Fiscal Advisory, we're going to really own our budgets. So principals will be presenting, directors will be presenting individually and specifically so that community members and the advisory committee can ask the people that are developing those budgets the hard questions, why this, why not this, or why can we cut this, can we add this? To the timeline, I'd really like to, I've drafted some dates for Fiscal Advisory with you guys at board leadership meeting. I plan on trying to confirm those dates and rolling it out. Our school, through Jane, our schools will be doing that work next week, believe it or not. We're going to start diving into the budget. You're going to see how we evaluate it and how we calculate it maybe a little bit differently. The reason why I wanted to give you the 5,000-foot view, because I want you to ask questions as we're going along. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable what we're delivering, what we're voting on, and what we're communicating to the public. It's such a big part or component of your job as a board, and we want to make sure that you have all your questions answered. So as we move, the timeline may feel different, it may feel quicker, but the goal is so that we can get to that, October, late October, early November, and really feel good about what we're doing so that we can begin then communicating it appropriately to the community on what we have going on. So that was it. It's a 5,000-foot overview of my goals. Questions, comments, concerns? I didn't expect much. I threw it at you for the first time, so.
All right, we're keeping it with you for your superintendent's update.
Okay, superintendent's update. I'd really like to, I have to touch base about your opening monologue because you tend to steal my thunder a lot, but that's for another day. So kids came back yesterday. It was awesome. Students, we had principals do a little bit of a report out for Joe and I. Brief highlights about, what went well from the Derry Police Department bear showing up during arrival at Grinnell to music blasting in the parking lot during arrival at the other schools. So attendance rates, it's I know it's only the first day, but it's always good to see that we were about 97% in attendance throughout the district. West Running Brook, 99.3. So shout out to West Running Brook. The other part is, I always say, not everything's always rainbows and unicorns. So they also submitted some challenges, whether it was bus delays, some students weren't picked up. We had a little bit of a construction issue with Next and where they were parking, or Deep. So it was a good report out. I'd say, the things are typically normal. People are taking pictures of their kids as they're leaving on the first day of buses, so they're running behind. Pickup is first time going through the school, whether you might be a fifth grade parent and you've never done pickup. So we'll get through those bumps and bruises, but to the principals and the assistant principals and the building level staff welcoming the kids back, it's been awesome. I already spoke about the video about free and reduced lunch, and I think we've covered that to an extent that we don't need to talk about it anymore, which has been great. And last is enrollment. In your folder is enrollment. You will see, Jamie had a great question in regards to the overflow. We had some overflow in kindergarten. Remember, that was first come, first serve, and then after that it becomes overflow, and then you will not see another enrollment until we lock it in through the state. So I will present enrollment again around the middle of October, because that becomes the number called beginning of year number, which is your average daily membership. So if you have questions about enrollment, let me know. The reason why I find August challenging is we had a family contact us today about enrolling tomorrow. So take this number with a grain of salt, and then, like I said, you'll get a more accurate number. We mentioned at leadership meeting this morning about projections. Jamie had brought it up as well. We previously used NESDEC. You used, do you remember the name?
Davis Demographics.
So I'll look into that in regards to projections, and so that we can have idea. I really like to have a solid number as we get into the budgeting cycle so that we can clearly articulate the why behind some of the movement we have. So with that, that's all for this evening. We have 178 days of school left.
Not that anyone's counting. All right, next up is committees. None of our board committees have met since the last meeting, but now that we've named our committee chairs at the last meeting, we are starting to get those schedules set, meetings on the books. So when we meet again here, multiple committees will have met, and we will probably have some updates.
So we have a date for the legislative task force committee. It's tomorrow at 7 here in that room over there. So thanks.
Yep, I was going to mention that as well. And yeah, I don't know, it's fine. But just to address that with the rest of the board, we have the three of you that are on the committee, and this committee is 3 board members, 3 town councilors, 3 of our state reps, our state senator, and I think they invite Pinkerton to come to these, at least. I don't know if anybody comes, but they invite them. And this is basically an opportunity to discuss, what we're each dealing with in our own areas, how we can collaborate. So if anybody has any questions or comments they want to present to those, different groups, feel free to reach out to Jen and I, and we can, communicate those questions onto the committee so that they can bring them to the meeting. All right.
Also, quick note, I did get a text back from Mr. Fowler. He's going to make sure that the air conditioner is on a regular timing for the next meeting. I'm sweating.
All right, FYIs and member updates. The enrollment report was on there. Mike's already addressed the enrollment report, so we're all set there. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to mention?
I just wanted to remind parents that Pinkerton starts up tomorrow and Thursday. So if we think that there's a bit of delay with the buses now, there's going to be delay probably Wednesday and Thursday, because while we're not taking pictures of our high school kids getting on the bus, that's still a learning curve. Huh?
Some of us might.
Are you?
I would say there's a lot of first-day drivers, too, so new drivers.
Yeah, watch out for the circle, because...
It always takes a while to get into a groove, but they always get into a groove.
Yeah.
All right. There are no other updates.
I have something to add.
Sure.
So I just wanted to draw attention. We had a kindergarten kickoff in mid-August. I attended kindergarten kickoff not as a Derry school board member, but as a Derry parent, because my son is in kindergarten this year, entering kindergarten. He has 2 big sisters, but this was the first time that an event like that has happened in the Derry School District. And so that event happened at the Derry Public Library. It was headed by the curriculum team. And it was a great opportunity for kids to come into the library. Maybe they hadn't been there before. Maybe it was their first time being able to get a library card. It was very hot there that night too, because the air conditioning wasn't working, but there were 123 attendees, and it was a great event. I think Ninja Goes to School was read. That ties into our CARES curriculum. There was a scavenger hunt to complete, which my son was very stubborn about making sure he completed, and then he was entered into a raffle. There was raffle opportunities. And so it was a great way for kindergarten families to get involved, particularly ones I think who are being introduced to the district. And so I appreciated being able to be there. Just wanted to give the curriculum team their due there.
Great, thank you, Jen. If there are no further updates, our future meeting schedule, our next 2 meetings will be Tuesday, September 9th and Tuesday, September 23rd, both at 6:30 p.m., both here at the Municipal Center. So that will wrap up our public agenda items. At this time, I will take a motion to enter non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A, Section 3, Paragraph 2, Subparagraph E.
So moved.
First by Jason. Second by Jen. This statute requires a roll call vote, so I will call everyone's name off. Jen?
Yes.
Jenna?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. All right, the board will now move to the training room for the non-public session, so good night, everybody.